mute unless you are asking a question during Q&A. That way we don't hear your background noise. We'd appreciate that. Feel free to have your camera on or off. That's completely and totally up to you. We are being joined by David York, who is the Tech Employer Specialist for Central and Eastern Kentucky. He will be wrangling the chat. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate all your efforts always. So we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Monica Remmy. I am the Tech Employer Specialist for Northern Kentucky, Greater Cincinnati area. But if you've talked to any of us, you know that we all work in a team here. We had this open day today, so I wanted to talk to everyone for a few minutes about, tell me about yourself as an introductory question. So I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself. Some of these statements you will find will be great intro statements, and some of them maybe not so much. Some of them might be conditional. So who am I? I am a cat mom to a tiny panther. He is a wild child and a feral rescue, and it's taken almost 4 years to get him to stop show affection through biting me. And I feel like animals are a real passion of mine, and I would love to have a job where I can take that passion and put it to use to help rescue animals. So, tell me about yourself. I am a combat sports photographer. In the last 5 years, I have shot more than 160 events with a total of more than 250,000 photographs, both ringside and backstage. I have been published both nationally and internationally, and I would love to have a job editing for this magazine. Tell me about yourself. I'm a nonprofit professional with more than 15 years experience. I have been in every role from development and fundraising to project management, program development. My greatest accomplishment, as far as I'm concerned, is that I helped start and run a pantry garden for a soup kitchen in a neighborhood that's very high poverty level. So tell me about yourself. That's a question that you're going to either be asked explicitly or implicitly. Explicitly in an interview or implicitly in those networking opportunities where you can connect with other professionals. So we refer to this as an elevator pitch. Now, I have several goals for you for this workshop. I would like you to increase your understanding of why this question is asked. Tell me about yourself. I would like you to be able to identify what you should share and get a good idea of what you shouldn't share. Take a look into your own history and your work and accomplishments and try and identify some stories to share. And I'm going to share with you the 80-20 rule. So as far as an elevator pitch goes, you may have heard 30, 90 seconds. What does that really mean? It means a few sentences at a time. 30 seconds, 2 to 3 sentences. You don't have to hit 30 seconds on the nose. What you want is the most important fact you want to share with this individual. 60 seconds, you're looking at 5 to 6 sentences. Think a small paragraph, a paragraph and a line. 90 seconds, 8 to 10 sentences, paragraph and a half, 2 small paragraphs about yourself. If that helps you better organize your thoughts, think of it in sentences instead of in actual seconds. Okay. So how is an interview question different than that networking question? When they are asking you this question in an interview, there are 2 things that they're really judging. Do you have a response? And is that response relevant to the conversation about that particular job? So other things that I shared with you in the intro to this workshop, a lot of them were great. They were communicative. They told you things about me, but they may not have been necessarily great for that particular job, or maybe they were. So the question that I want you to ask yourself is what I'm sharing relevant to this conversation? Things that you should be sharing, things in your work history, your accomplishments, education and training, goals, values in common with that employer. There are a lot of pitfalls, and it's very easy to share things that maybe you shouldn't. Grievances against a former employer, and I don't mind sharing this, it's been a very long time. I can remember being asked in an interview why I had been laid off in a previous position, and the first word out of my mouth was nepotism. The other project manager in the company was the daughter-in-law of the owner of the company, so they certainly weren't going to. And as it was coming out of my mouth, I knew that I had made the wrong choices. And no, I didn't get a second interview for that job. But I did learn something about it. You have to filter the things that you want to say ahead of time, especially when you want to encapsulate them down into these little condensed bites. Now, under the do not share, you may notice here that I have personal details and less relevant. Now, if you have a history of, say, substance abuse in your family, and you want to share that, that is relevant if you are going for a job that has to do with substance use disorders. If you're going for, say, a data management position for a hospital or a care facility, then it's relevant. If you're doing it for an ice cream company, that may not necessarily be relevant, unless substance use disorder is a personal mission of that company. And then that goes back to common values. Salary expectations. The good rule of thumb is the person who talks about money first loses. Don't give it a number unless you absolutely have to. And I would not talk about money at all in that first 30, 60, 90 seconds. A number is not necessarily the first and last impression that you want to leave with someone. And the last part is strongly held beliefs or political views, again, unless relevant. One of the great things about the US is that this is a pluralist society. We can accept the idea that more than one thing can be right at the same time, and that's what makes us great. So especially in that first 30, 60, 90 seconds, again, unless it's relevant to the position, I would refrain from sharing strongly held beliefs or political views. Let's see. What I'd like to do for, say, the next, actually, I want to do this first. Let's talk about the 80-20 rule. 80% of what you're talking about should be previous work and or experience, and 20% should be training and accomplishments. So when I talked about creating the pantry garden for the soup kitchen, if I had more time to go into it, I would talk about the amount of money that I raised, the steps that I took, the partners that I had to bring together, and then the awards that we won afterwards, and the news that we were able to generate, and the awareness that we were able to raise. All of that would be relevant. So what I'd like to do for, let's see, it's 10 minutes after 6. For the next 10 minutes, what I'd like you to do is to take this time and identify some things within your own history that you think would be good to highlight, or questions that you might have, and put those in chat. And I will look through them and go ahead and respond to your questions, and we will go from there. If anyone wants to share a elevator pitch that they put together, or a response to that question, tell me about yourself, we can certainly do that and share feedback. So let's take 9 minutes. It's 11 after. 9 minutes. Let's come back at 6:20. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you in a few minutes. If anyone has joined us late, welcome to our workshop on Tell Me About Yourself. We are taking a few minutes break. If you will take a look in the chat, you will find a couple of documents that you will either be able to view or download. If you can't download them, don't worry. We will make them available after the workshop concludes. What we're doing right now is a practice for the next 5 minutes. If you take a look through the share and do not share recommendations, think through your own history and identify some of your highlights that you should be sharing in a 30, 60, or 90-second elevator pitch or answer to the question, tell me about yourself. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Okay, it's 20 after 6. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to get started with the next part. Let me take a moment to go ahead and answer the questions in the chat. Feel free as we go along to put your questions in the chat. David York will be wrangling that for us. Would passion for volunteer work be advisable in a common value scenario or a good idea overall? It depends. When you are interviewing with an employer, keep in mind the employer is entirely focused on what you can do for them. And if what you are mainly passionate about in your life is something that you are not doing for them, that may not be looked on terribly favorably. However, if it's a company that has very high social engagement, that might be something that they find attractive. So sometimes. In interviews, when money comes up, I usually try to diffuse the situation. I want infinity amount of dollars. I would love infinity amount of dollars. It has not been a winning strategy. No, unfortunately, it's not. There are a couple of things you need to know. You need to know what your minimum dollar is. You really need to know what the absolute bottom dollar that you could possibly accept for a job is. Don't tell them that number. You want to tell them something above that number if you have to. I recommend doing your research and finding out that industry, that city, that job title, and then factor in training, portfolio, communication skills, and other soft skills. All of those are going to be augmenting. And negotiate as not aggressively, but as assertively as you can. And that's very important because when you are first negotiating over money with a job, that is the absolute most leverage you will ever have to get a certain amount of money for that position. Because after that, it's going to be, schedules of raises or increases or not, depending on, straight job, contract, that kind of thing. But when you are negotiating for that dollar, that is the most control that you have. So don't squander it. Know what you're worth. And I will share with you exactly what I say. Here's what I've said in the past. I would expect something commensurate with my experience and my ability. And if they say, great, I need you to put a number to that, you need to be able to put a number to that and make sure it's above your bare minimum, and make sure that you are willing to accept that if they cannot meet that number, that you're willing to move on. Because one of the worst things you can do is put yourself in a situation where you have a job that you like or at least respect or are learning something from that does not meet your bills. You don't want that to happen. Does anyone else have any questions they would like to ask? Okay. Does anyone have any questions about a highlight that they brainstormed during that break that they're not sure if they should share or not share? Got it. Okay, I have Lee and Elizabeth.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that for me, for some of my experience that I've had is volunteer work at my church. running the tech department. What would be the best way to kind of incorporate that into like the skill sets that I have for a potential client? Because I've helped kind of run it and like do some of the scheduling and also like solutions that we have to do for like the live streaming services. So I'm having to research the technology and stuff like that.
So you're doing research and planning, communications. I would definitely put that under tech project management.
Okay.
That's absolutely valid experience, and you should definitely bring that up, circumstances or not.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I just wasn't quite sure the best way to word it, but
Yeah, technical project management, and there's a lot of need for that actually.
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
What is the best way to introduce if you have a long gap in your experience? And if the reason is a family issue, how do you put or how do you fill that gap?
Things have changed since COVID. Pre-COVID, if you had a 3 or 4 year gap in your employment history, employers really kind of look down on that. But there are millions and millions of people right now who had a significant gap in their employment fairly recently. And a number of people had to have a gap in their employment to take care of family. I would be just direct about it. Choosing to take care of family over employment is a noble thing and definitely takes a lot of persistence and perseverance and all kinds of skills that any employer should be grateful to have. So I would say just be upfront and say, for the last so many years, I was caring for a family member. And if you did anything in the interim, contract-wise, volunteer-wise, or were able to continue training in any way to continue to enrich yourself intellectually, keep yourself stimulated that way, I would also include that. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think we have one more in chat. Give me just one moment to get to it. Thank you so much for your comments, Joshua. And don't worry about the typos. Most likely, I will never notice them, and I will hope you will not notice mine. Let's see. And Joshua, if you'd like to share anything about your experience job hunting from southeastern Kentucky, I think we'd all be curious to know about that as well. If you're comfortable sharing it, feel free to put something in chat. Does anyone else have any questions they would like to ask? Or referring back to our document, does anyone else have items that they brainstormed that they have a question as to whether or not it would be a good idea to include in their 30, 60, 90-second elevator pitch? And Joshua, I'm curious about being a data analyst and coming from your area in southeastern Kentucky. What was it like getting a job, as a data analyst? So does anyone else have any examples that they would like to ask questions about? Let's back up. Okay. Well, my name is Monica Remmy, and again, I am the Tech Employer Specialist for Northern Kentucky and Greater Cincinnati. And David York has been with us tonight. He is your Eastern Kentucky and Central Kentucky coordinator. We do, in fact, work as a team. Feel free to reach out to either of us on Slack with questions that you may have, or feel free to show up at office hours on Tuesdays from 5 to 6. Now, if you're in the Louisville area, we'll be happy to direct you to Allie. And if you need more extensive help with resumes or any other information like that, we'll be happy to get you into the hands of the right people. So, for Joshua, less experience, more soft skills. Absolutely. Soft skills are probably the most important thing that you can have outside of your tech skills. All right. All right. Thank you very much. I think we're going to go ahead and end the workshop. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly, and have a good night. Thanks. Bye.